After double pod trebles, we've got double pods for you this week, starting with this early look at the midweek matches in England's top flight. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod, powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Daniel Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How you doing, Sam?
Hello, mate. Yeah, very good. The magic of the cup is still alive and kicking, which is good to see on a Monday morning. So yeah, all good.
Your mood is based solely on Plymouth's result and not on the bet that you put on Plymouth to lose to 0, or?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, but I love the FA Cup third round. Like, I think it's excellent. And we did mention, like, with the plethora of quality in the Premier League squads now, that giant killings will be few and far between. And I'm not sure if you can call it a giant killing, but still, it's a pretty impressive result considering. So, yeah, good weekend.
Yeah, Sam with Tottenham. It's just classic FA Cup, isn't it? Nice to see.
Loved it. What a game.
Yeah, team of part-timers travel into the Midlands to take on Tamworth. It's good to see, you know. Also joining us today, Scott Thornton, back again. How you doing, Scott?
Yeah, good. Also enjoyed Tamworth versus Tottenham, and you know exactly why. I did mention on the pod last week, before the lines were out, that the throw-ins would fly in there, and we had 45 in normal time, didn't we? So very easy work.
I was on Sky. It's a great shout.
Yeah,
and the unders on Man City as well. That came into if you were there early. So it was textbook weekend of the FA Cup third round. That's why I love it every year.
Certainly one to keep an eye on for the fourth round as well. Also joining us today, Mark Stinchcombe, back for a second appearance. How you doing, Mark?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, all good, thanks, mate. Enjoyed the disparity between some of the big teams and the lower teams in the FA Cup with the scrapping of replays. I'm wondering if there should be maybe some seeding in the FA Cup to ensure that some of these smaller teams do get to take on the big guns, and the likes of Tamworth, even Morecambe in the first half against Chelsea actually narrowed the gap substantially. So yeah, we don't want to just see repeats of the big six always playing each other, especially with a big strike rate of the big six actually winning the trophy year in, year out. So yeah, it's refreshing to see some of these smaller teams and get their day out, and also to keep them running for the rest of the season and the future as well.
Yeah, we certainly had an extra element to it, the scrapping of replays, didn't it? Some of those matches we were quite excited. Maybe we would have wanted to see another Tottenham Tamworth game, but yeah, settled in 120 minutes. Probably would be a very different game at a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Don't want to spend too much on the first half of the show this week, given that we spent maybe 45 minutes of last week's hour-long show not talking about the tips. So let's get on with some tips this week. And Scott, let's kick off with you, starting with Arsenal versus Tottenham North London derby, probably the biggest match in this Premier League slate in midweek.
Yeah, there's a lot of data behind this one. With most of my bets, to be honest, we're going to back tackles and free kicks, but some of it is just vibes. I think we're going to see a chaotic game.
Nice.
Yeah, so the numbers do support it, but I think we'll see a nice derby here. Arsenal, there was a sort of a palpable sense of frustration as they exited the FA Cup for the weekend. Just the same sort of problems rearing their head. The lack of, I wouldn't say creativity, because Havertz did squander a couple of big chances, but they really should have beaten United when they were playing with a man extra for an hour at the weekend. I think Arsenal do have this reputation of being nearly men, and this is a perfect way to exercise their demons and really put Spurs to the sword here. Spurs haven't won here in, 15 years now, without a win in the last 6. And I think Spurs will also be frustrated as well. They're 12th in the league. They were really targeting a top 4 finish coming into it. What that means for our bet is tackles and free kicks. Inevitably, these two teams should get stuck in, and some of these tackles get mistimed. So we're going to back over 36.5 tackles and over 25.5 free kicks in the match. Arsenal's home matches this season have seen 37 tackles on average. It's 37.56 in Spurs away matches, which is a little too close for comfort, but the head-to-heads show much more promise. There were 41 tackles in the reverse fixture and 52 in this game last season, so way, way, way above what we're asking for here. And I think this one looks primed to see these two teams go at it once again, and inevitably tackles lead to fouls. In the 3 games where Tottenham have played Arsenal with Ange in charge, there's been an average of 27.33 fouls per game, but the 365 market also includes offsides, and Tottenham actually see plenty of offsides with an average of 4.33 per game this season. Arsenal's 3.44 per game, but all three of these matches with Ange in charge have seen at least 5 offsides, and over 25.5 free kicks has landed in all 3 of those games as well. So I just think that this one looks primed from a vibes point of view to just see a really nice, entertaining 2 teams getting stuck in, a bit frustrated with the way things have gone. Obviously, Tottenham targeting a League Cup final, but overall they won't really be happy with the way the first half of the season has gone. And if you told any Arsenal fan that they'd be above Man City, but 9 points, well, they've played a game more, but they're well off the pace in terms of Liverpool, then they'd be quite frustrated. I think it's going to see a nice chaotic game as a result here.
Yeah. It's a strange one on paper. I was looking at some of the pre-match odds last week. Arsenal were at 1.36 to win the match in the 1x2, which is the shortest price they've been for a North London derby for as long as my data goes back, which was the invincible seasons. Over 21 years, they've never been short price. That includes all competitions as well. And yet, in the past, anyone who's watched Arsenal play in the past couple of weeks, you'd see a side that cannot score chances whatsoever. And thinking about the game more specifically, Scott, are you expecting a high-scoring one? Are you expecting it to be exciting? Like, is that sort of air of frustration that's going around Arsenal at the moment, and probably around Tottenham as well, which you alluded to, is that going to lead into what sort of match we expect to see?
I like to think we'll see goals. I think we'll most definitely see chances, but as you say, you can't really trust Arsenal to perform up to their XG lately. They really should have put a few goals on. Newcastle in the first leg of the semi-final, and then United obviously helped by the red card, but still they had the chances. I think both teams will score in this game. I almost put that as part of the build. I do think both teams will score, but we could easily see a 1-1 or like a 4-3. This game, it seems like it'll have chances, but do you trust either team to finish them off? And so I've sided with the chaos in terms of tackles and fouls. It's been much more fun to watch as opposed to maybe Kai Havertz squandering a few chances and me looking at it frustrated again.
He will certainly do that. Any thoughts on the North London derby, chaps, before we move on to the rest of your bets?
Agree with Scott. In terms of the main markets, Arsenal, they're 1.4 now, really struggling in the last few games, and Tottenham obviously unable to finish their dinner against National League outfit Tamworth on the weekend. So it's really hard to have full faith in either team right now. From a betting point of view, it wasn't really one I was too interested in getting involved in. Maybe something in play, but right now wasn't too keen to get involved.
Betsy projections give Arsenal 2.02 goals with 1.03 to Tottenham. 60% chance for Arsenal to win, which I think is the second likeliest 1x2 win of the weekend behind Newcastle taking on Wolves. Scott's bet first of the show is over 36.5 tackles and over 25.5 free kicks in the North London derby. That's a 1.86, one full unit on that.
I think, sorry Dan, unders might be a runner because the line's pretty high because of, just because it's a Premier League game, and generally when these two meet, it's goal heavy. We all know about Spurs' chaos this season as well. But actually, I think with both teams sort of been faltering in front of goal, obviously we know Arsenal are creating chances, failing to finish them. However, I think 6 of the last 9 domestically, they've scored 1 goal or fewer. I think with Spurs' issues defensively, it's hampering their ability to play out from the back, which has had an impact on them going forward as well. I think it's 7 of their last 12 games. I think they've scored 1 goal or fewer as well. You've got the derby element of, both teams not wanting to lose. And I think the schedule is really, really hampering both teams as well. Arsenal just come off the back of 8 days of Brighton, Newcastle and United, 120 minutes obviously against United. Spurs have had that game against Liverpool and then followed by extra time against Tamworth. Arsenal got a huge game against Villa Saturday night as well. So obviously another game 3 days later. Spurs probably got one eye on the second leg against Liverpool as well. So I think under 3.25 could be a way to go as well. It's actually 1.92. So you're still going to get paid out even if it is a 2-1, 1-1. Even if there is 3 goals in the game, you're still going to get a half stakes win. So I think that could be the way to go as well.
Yeah. I like that. Spurs failed to score in 3 of the last 5 Premier League away games. And as you said, fixture congestion is so bad for both of these teams now. I think Arsenal playing 9 games in January, which is a lot.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think Gabriel Jesus has just done his ACL. So even more even more woes for Arsenal strikers. Just to recap, Scott's first bet, over 36.5 tackles and over 25.5 free kicks in North London Derby. That's 1.86. Sam, over to you. Big change at Everton, which is the top of your first bet.
Yeah, I'm following Scott's lead. I'm going to be going into the prop markets with over 12.5 Everton shots at evens. So they faced Aston Villa. Aston Villa have lost their last 5 away Premier League games. They are 17th in the expected points away table with 8.44 expected points. They are averaging 14.67 shots conceded per 90. And now they travel to Goodison Park, which has been a bit of a breeding ground for 0-0s, limited opportunities, and overall pretty drab affairs. But obviously, yeah, like you mentioned, Sean Dyche is gone. David Moyes returns after 11 years. And I'm not sure if the fan base was universal in gladly taking him back with open arms ahead of the move to Bramley Dock and more urgently, the fight against relegation this season. But what I do know and fully expect is that Goodison Park, under the lights, that crowd will be right up for this. It's, as we all know, it's quite an imposing atmosphere, and it's one that Moyes and his Everton teams harnessed during his reign previously, and I'm not expecting miracles straight away, far from it. I'm hesitant to back Everton on the main lines, but yeah, I do like Everton shots. And I mentioned at the start that Villa are struggling on the road, and surprisingly, they are, alongside Leicester City, the only team yet to keep an away clean sheet in the Premier League this season. So if the Everton players and supporters pick up on that, if there's a few misplaced passes or errors, if they look shaky at all, this David Moyes-led Toffee side will get dragged up the pitch by that Goodison Park crowd. And I'm mindful this all sounds like a little bit cliche and a bit like airy-fairy, but I fully believe that Goodison Park crowd will have an effect. I think that kind of atmosphere creates an urgency on the ball. It tempts players into getting the ball forward quicker. It gives the playing staff a bit of a lift. And some of these players, by the way, they will feel like the shackles are off going into this with Sean Dyche now gone. An opportunity for them to get on the ball, show what they're about, and not be as direct. We saw countless times Tarkowski, Branthwaite getting on the ball and just lumping it up the channel or lumping it up to the striker up top. And we may not see that as frequently now, you'd imagine anyway. So like I said, I'm not expecting miracles, but I am expecting everything that Everton Football Club stands for: grit, determination, strong in the duels, brave going forward, crosses into the box. Over 12.5 Everton shots at evens is the bet. They're averaging 12.56 shots per 90 at home so far this season, as we head into the 10th home fixture and David Moyes' first. So yeah, that's where I landed, Dan. Did not fancy taking the mainlands, but I think shots is a good way in.
Yeah, it's Everton have failed to score in 8 of the last 10 Premier League matches. Villa can't keep a clean sheet. Yeah, what's the opposite of an immovable object against an unstoppable force? It's like a side that cannot score against a side that cannot keep them out. Are you expecting them to get on the score sheet at all, or just peppering those shots away?
Maybe. Yeah, I suppose it's really hard to tell. It depends how, what way the game goes. If they concede early and, the crowd and the players aren't really up for it, Moyes can't get his instruction across as he would have wanted before the game, maybe this takes a different path. But I just imagine that the crowd are going to be, like I said, I keep saying it, but the crowd are going to be so up for it from minute one. They're at Goodison Park, and I think that should really lead to opportunities. They may not be high quality. I'm not bothered if they are high quality. They can shoot from 34 yards if they want. But yeah, I would imagine shots do follow. And what I would say is that it's not really the most glamorous appointment, and I get why some people may not be too keen. Some Everton supporters may not be too keen on it, but what they should get is stability. He's shown that before with Everton and West Ham. He's got West Ham competing for Europe. He won a European trophy with West Ham. I think that gets overlooked a little bit, because that in itself, for me, is pretty ridiculous. That West Ham, that underlying attacking processes were pretty good, much better than what Everton are serving up now. 18.33 XG in 19 Premier League games for Everton. That's just not okay, but I think that should change.
Yeah, they've done quite well at times in the bigger games in the past month, and then they've taken points from Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester City, having a very specific game plan that involves your entire backline sitting on the edge of your box and soaking up pressure and not getting any shots. But new manager, expect a new approach. Is that the thinking here?
I think so, yeah. I think they've got players in forward areas that can cause teams problems as well. I think Sean Dyche and his backroom staff may come out and say like that was the main reason why they played like they did. But I think with a new person coming in, taking the reins, I think we should see a bit more in that final third. Definitely. I said it last week. Illiman and Dye's brilliant. McNeil, when he's on it, cutting in from the wing. When Calvert-Lewin gets into a run of form, he's a proven Premier League striker who can get goals at the level. They do need one or two, I would say, to kind of come in and bolster those options. But there's enough there to create chances and score goals, something that we haven't seen often enough in the opening months of the season. So I think they'll be all right. I think they'll stay up. I'm really intrigued to see how David Moyes does it.
Yeah. Moyes, interestingly, the 10th permanent Premier League manager to have managed the same club twice. But Moyes is the first person to do it with two separate clubs. Little quiz question, can anyone name any of the other 9 men on the list managing the same clubs twice, permanent manager appointments?
Jose did it, didn't he?
Jose
Mourinho
did it. Jose's one. I'm not going to wait for 10 because you're never going to get some of these. But I will give you Howard Kendall and Steve Coppell on the house. That's a bit.
I had those two.
Oh yeah,
those are my two.
Yeah. There has been one at Everton, which was Howard Kendall. A couple at Crystal Palace, a couple at Chelsea, one at Watford.
Hodgson.
David Moyes, West Ham. Yeah, Hodgson is one of them.
Yeah.
Mourinho's one of them.
Thought it would be better than this. I didn't really give it any thought, to be honest, when I seen you wrote it down.
No, it's fun.
I was struggling.
It's fun. Goose Hiddink at Chelsea. Frank Lampard at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Kevin Keegan at Newcastle. Harry Redknapp at Portsmouth. And the one that probably nobody will get is Quique Sanchez Flores at Watford, who had 2 stints. Yeah, one of their many managers.
That was a tough one.
I feel like these tenures just all mould into one. They were probably both very similar tenures, so you just forget that they were there twice.
Yeah, there was a good article on the Premier League website about it a couple of years ago, looking at the different points per games that the different managers had in their 2 separate stints. Yeah, quite interesting, actually. I may put a link into that on Twitter or something. But Sam's first bet of the pod is over 12.5 shots for Everton when they play Aston Villa in midweek. That's even money, 1 full unit on that, Sam?
Yes, please.
Good stuff. Mark Stinchcombe, up to you for your first bet.
Chelsea here, 1.57 at home to Bournemouth. That smells and looks too short to me, to be honest. I'll come on to Bournemouth in a second, who are one of the best teams in the league this season, in my opinion. But Chelsea failed to win any of their last 4 league games, and 3 of those were against the bottom 6. So I think that immediately gives us an invitation to sort of investigate Bournemouth. And the Bournemouth side is 7th in the league, and they're just 3 points behind Chelsea in 4th. But yeah, we've got Chelsea here, as I say, sub 1.6, and just seems far too short. Bournemouth unbeaten in the last 8 now. Bournemouth ranked 3rd based on expected points this season with 37.67. It's higher than Chelsea's 33.11. Bournemouth are 2nd in the league for most shots per game, 16.7. They've actually underperformed their expected points. Expected points would have them sit 3rd in the league. It's essentially down to them failing to take the high quality chance that they are creating, because they're creating the 4th most expected goals at 42. They've only scored 30, which is the biggest underachievement in the league. And the main culprits here being Semenyo, Tavernier, Evan Nilsson and Utara. We've got 14 goals between them from 26 expected goals. And I'm actually this is not any offence to Evan Nilsson, but I'm kind of excited that he's injured, because I think it might work in their favour that the replacements can actually find the back of the net. They put 5 past West Brom on Saturday without him. Obviously, lower league opposition, but West Brom's still in the conversation for the playoffs and are definitely a top half championship side. So I think this game should be more competitive than the odds suggest. And because Chelsea are quite short, we can actually back Bournemouth +1 on the Asian handicap, 1.89. So it would need Chelsea to win by 2 or more goals for the bet to lose. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of everything that Iraola is doing at Bournemouth, and I think they're a massive shout for top 6 and maybe even dark horses for the top 4, especially you consider that Forest are currently occupying 3rd, and I would expect a regression from Forest at some point. So yeah, there could be a couple of places up for grabs in that top 4.
Yeah, I was glad you brought up Evan Nilsson, because that was going to be one of the things I wanted to discuss. They played Dango Tara up front grabbed a couple of goals at the weekend in the FA Cup. Are you expecting a bit of a drop-off from Bournemouth with these forward injuries without a recognised striker, aren't they, at the moment? In the Premier League, they haven't lost since, was it 23rd of November? It's a pretty incredible run for them.
Yeah, and was that? I think that was at home to Brighton as well. That was quite a ironic considering similar sort of styles in terms of transfers. No, I'm not actually, because they create so many chances and they create so many chances for different players that I don't think it's going to be too much of an absence. They've obviously lost Unal as well, so I would expect them to bring somebody in. They've recalled Daniel Jefferson from Watford, but he's still very raw and there's some sort of attitude questions around him, albeit he did score against West Brom side. So I would expect them to bring somebody in. But actually, as I say, I think they've got so many exciting young players in that sort of front four, if you like, that no, I'm not expecting a drop-off. And yeah, I would expect the owners to see basically how well they're doing so far this season and the potential of what they could achieve. So I think maybe at worst they might get someone in on loan, and obviously then that wouldn't be a bigger commitment as to actually paying a substantial fee for a player.
Yeah, I think there's enough quality there. Justin Kluivert, Semenyo, got some good players up front.
And what I would say as well is I don't think that centre forward position in that Bournemouth attacking unit, I don't think it's like pivotal to creating chances. So like Mark said, I think they'll keep creating a similar level of chances just with a different guy in the middle. So I think they'll be okay. Obviously a massive blow. It looks like they're going to get someone in as well. So you never know. They may end up profiting from it.
Betsy projections give Chelsea 2.25 goals to Bournemouth's 1.47, goal difference of 0.77. So certainly going along with Mark Stinchcombe's bet, which is +1 goal for Bournemouth in the Asian handicap market. Just a quick one on Chelsea, Mark. They haven't won a Premier League game for nearly a month, 4 straight games without a win. What is going wrong with them? Is it the case of their defensive underlyings maybe catching up with them a little bit, or is it just that the goals have dried up?
I think they've been struggling to convert the chances they've created. And then, yeah, as you say, that at the other end of the pitch, the opposition have been taking the chances where once before they perhaps wouldn't. I mean, if you look at the last 4 games, based on the expected goals, they're kind of similar numbers against the opposition, despite, as I say, 3 of them are Everton, Ipswich and Crystal Palace. You look away against Ipswich created 1.5 XG compared to Chelsea's 1.61. And at home to Fulham, 1.56, and Fulham created 1.78. Even Everton created over 1 expected goals, and we already know Everton don't create chances, let alone score them. So the fact that Chelsea haven't created more than 1.61 expected goals in those 4 games essentially says to me that they can't just rely on the magic of Cole Palmer and perhaps need some of the other players to contribute. I kind of feel sometimes with Chelsea, especially now this season with Palmer playing in that number 10 rather than off the right, they just think, oh, we'll just give it to Cole and he'll do something, and maybe they need to take a little bit more responsibility. I also feel as though perhaps outside of Palmer, the other front 3, so the 2 wide men and the central striker, I think there's enormous amount of pressure on them because there's so many players just itching to take their place essentially. And I think given most of them sort of quite young, I think they're perhaps you get that volatility with youngsters and maybe you don't quite get the consistency. So, and also Chelsea got a few injuries defensively as well, which I think is caught up with them. And then they had Cucurella suspended. So yeah, they've got this massive squad, but I think because they haven't all been there together for a while, there is an element of they just maybe aren't a cohesive unit still.
Yeah. And what may get overlooked is that the last 4 games where they haven't won was over the festive schedule. So if my maths is correct, I think that's 4 games in 13 days. So yeah, massive squad, but that is going to be pretty tough for any Premier League team, especially when 3 of those games are away from home.
Fatigue could be a thing. 5 of the last 7 goals they've conceded have come after the 80th minute in their matches, which does suggest that maybe they're just getting a bit tired as the games go on. A lot of matches for everyone at the moment. Mark Stinchcombe's first tip is Bournemouth +1 in the Asian handicap market when they take on Chelsea in midweek. That's a 1.89. Sam, back over to you for your second single.
Yes, I've gone for goals in Leicester City versus Crystal Palace at 1.98. That's at over 2.75 Asian goal line. And this is actually the first time Palace have been the pre-match favourites for an away game at Leicester City since they met in the 2008-2009 Championship season. So they come into this match, Palace, unbeaten in 5 consecutive Premier League matches for the first time since 2021-22. They haven't navigated 6 straight top-flight games without defeat for over 30 years. So that group really should be full of confidence, you'd think. This season, 55% of Palace's matches are finished under 2.5 goals, and only 2 teams in Arsenal and Everton have a higher percentage for unders. However, they are playing Leicester City here during the week, and they've seen overs land in 90% of away games and 60% of home games. So my first reaction, really, whenever Leicester City play in the Premier League, is goals. Leicester at home have failed to score in just 1 of 10 matches this season, although you'd probably look at that 11 and think there's not too much about them in forward areas really on the face of it. Eze has been back for Palace after injury for about 6 weeks now, and he's starting to pick up goals contributions, 2 goals and assists in his last 3 games. So maybe we'll start seeing him at his best again sooner rather than later, alongside Ismail Assar, who's impressive, and also Matete up top. If the bookmakers are right and Palace are deserved 1.95 odds-on favourites, but the likelihood is, according to the data, that Leicester City should create chances and score themselves at the King Power, then it just feels that maybe betting on over 2.75 goals at 1.98 is the way forward if you're not fully sold on Palace coming here and turning over Leicester on a cold Wednesday evening. I just expect goals with Leicester involved. So, yeah, over 2.75, I'd probably just take over 2.5. I think it's around 1.7. But, you know, for the purposes of the pod, I've gone a line higher and, yeah, expecting goals down.
Okay. It's another one of those, similar to your first bet, Sam, where you've seen a bit of a trend and just gone against it a little bit. You know, Everton not really scoring too many. Leicester are struggling. You said, but they failed to score in a couple of 2 in a row at home now. And Palace are averaging 1 goal per game in the last 5 in all competitions. Bets projections are down as well. 1.09 for Leicester, 1.49 for Palace, 2.58 goal total. So just a little bit below the 2.75. But are you just, expecting this to be, you know, are you zagging when everyone's zigging? Is what I'm saying.
I don't know. Maybe I am. I just, like I said, with Leicester involved, I really fancy goals, and they did play QPR on the weekend and won 6-2. So I know a championship club, and that just goes to show, by the way, like a struggling Premier League club against a middling championship side, and they blew them away. So, you know, that just goes to show the gap between those kind of clubs, unless it's your Brentfords and your Plymouth Argos, then it's a little bit different. But what we'll say on the weekend is Palace actually did labour to victory over Stockport in the second half, especially on 1-0. I was on the minus 1.5 handicap on the pod, of course I was. And their second half showing was really quite poor. So I'm hoping that we see a reaction here. And in the Leicester game, El Canusa and Buonanotte looked really bright against QPR. And I think there'll be large sections of that Leicester fan base calling for Van Nistelrooy to start them together in the league. I think he's hesitant to do so. Keep starting Jordan Ayew instead. Both really good technicians, so comfortable on the ball, and the kind of players you want in behind Vardy. And I'd imagine he'd start starting them together because they were that good. And if Leicester are to have any chance of staying in the league, I think those two will be at the heart of it. And obviously, Mavididi on the wing and Vardy at top. It's not really a bad attacking unit. And I think it's enough to cause some trouble at home against this visiting Palace side. And at the other end, Leicester have kept 1 clean sheet in 10 at the King Power. Yeah, it all points towards goals for me. I could be wildly wrong. But
after Dan pulled out all the negative statistics, it's over 2.5 goals has landed in 5 of the last 6 head-to-heads between the teams.
Scott.
So I'll go you back. I'll go you back.
Second single of the pod is Leicester versus Crystal Palace, over 2.75 goals. That's a 1.98, 1 full unit on that again. For the rest of the show, I mean, we're just going to be focusing on West Ham versus Fulham. We got 2 bets, 1 each from Mark and Scott on this. Mark, do you want to kick us off with your selection?
West Ham host Fulham on Tuesday night, and Fulham go in as slight favourites at 2.45, which I think is understandable. Fulham having a good season, a very good season actually, and obviously West Ham struggling a little bit, but obviously the switch of manager throws the odds a little bit off, perhaps, because we don't really know what we're going to get perhaps long term with Graham Potter. But obviously his first Premier League game in charge for West Ham after the sacking of Lopetegui, who massively underwhelmed, didn't he, despite the fortune spent. They won just 6 of 20 league games, 14th in the league, only 7 points above the relegation zone. I think that his main failure was not improving a defence that had the worst record outside of the promoted teams last season. They conceded a whopping 74 goals last season, so just under 2 per game at 1.95. This season, they conceded 39 so far. It's exactly the same average of 1.95, and that's despite 40 million on Max Kilman. So there was no reason for West Ham to really keep persevering. I don't think it was attractive football either. Despite having a lot of exciting players going forward. As again, it wasn't bad luck or anything for the goals they were conceding. They were conceding the 4th most shots per game, nearly 17 per match, and that meant they were conceding the 4th most expected goals. It was inevitable that they would continue to concede, essentially. Based on all of that, it meant that we were getting lots of over 2.5 winners with West Ham, particularly at the London Stadium, and that's my angle here. Over 2.75 goals is 1.89. 80% of West Ham's matches at the London Stadium this season have seen over 2.5. Further back, 13 of the last 18. A very healthy return of 72%. And yeah, like Marco Silva for Fulham, it's just doing an unreal job, I think. To lose João Paulinho and have only lost 4 league games all season, I just think not enough's being written about it. I think probably maybe because Bournemouth are doing so well, Forest are doing amazing, Fulham are going under the radar a little bit, but their games have been quite goal heavy as well. 10 of the last 16 have seen over 2.5, and we've already had a winner in this one for Graham Potter in his first game in charge away at Villa Park on Friday night in the Cup with a 2-1 defeat. So I think West Ham are going to have to come out a little bit here. There needs to be some appeasement to the fans, maybe similar to sort of Sam's anger with Everton being a bit more on the front foot. And I think Fulham are just going back in time a little bit with Raul Jimenez seemingly in superb form at the moment. Over 2.75 goals, so 3 or more goals, we'll see at least half a profit.
Yeah, I was glad you brought up Paulinho. I was going to mention him actually because it shows how difficult it is and how well Fulham have done that they've managed to replace him in the central midfield. Like comparing him to West Ham, who lost Declan Rice a couple of years ago, and I was looking at their goals against before and after losing Declan Rice, and it went up about 20 to 22 goals per season on average they're conceding. So fair play to Fulham, fair play to them. And yeah, new manager coming in at West Ham. Are you expecting sort of similar outcome to the change at Everton? Is it too early to predict how successful they'll be, but are you expecting an immediate difference in approach?
I think that's a difficult one because I think Potter has a lot of admirers for the work he did at Brighton, but after what happened at Chelsea, and look, I think he had like 30 odd games in charge. So I really don't think it was a big enough sample size. And there was an awful lot of signings as well. So it's difficult for him to maybe get his ideas across immediately. I think Potter has a bit of a point to prove, but I think he'll want to play, obviously, this possession style football, but I quite like it in that respect in terms of betting, because sometimes I think there is too much of an obsession with passing out from the back, and it's almost as if people think you pass out from the back, it definitely leads to a goal. It may lead to a half decent opportunity eventually when it gets at the other end of the pitch, but if you make one, not even big error, just a tiny error, and it leads to a turnover in possession, players are massively out of position, easy for the opposition to take advantage. I think it's difficult to say. Everton won. I can't get past the fact that a lot of Everton fans are against Moyes because apparently he called them a disgrace while he was at Man United. So I think that one's going to be really feisty. That's a really interesting one to see how it unfolds. But this one down at West Ham, I said he was waiting for the right opportunity to come back in. I'm not 100% sure that West Ham's the right opportunity, but he's certainly got a lot of high quality technical players that like to get on the ball, like to play football. They are without Jared Bowen and Antonio, but I'm hoping Nicholas Fulkrug will start scoring some goals now.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Dinos Mavropanos and Vladimir Kufal get on with playing out the back.
Just on that, I think Fulkrug's out injured now, so Danny Ings is their only available striker going into this game, I think. Saw that this morning. So
it's West Ham, though. They'll probably spend another 40 million to bring one in when they love a striker.
I expect them to, yeah, probably.
Probably will, and sell him 2 years later. Scott, bring us in your bet for this game, please.
Yeah, same game. Mark has covered a lot of, say, the colour. They haven't really given a good picture, so I can get straight into the boring stuff. So
Doesn't matter as long as it wins.
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's usually the theory. That's what we'll go with. Yeah, so we're going to have West Ham to have the most corners in the game. I'll start off by saying Fulham have been really, really good this season. They've only lost 2 away games in the Premier League, both to the Manchester clubs. But that helps us here. We don't really want the away side chasing the game because inevitably they'll win more corners than you'd expect. Ideally, Fulham take an early lead and then we're laughing. I just like West Ham's attack. I think they've got decent options. Even if Ings is starting up front, Paqueta, Kudus, Somerville, they're all very, very good in those half spaces, and they do tend to pile the pressure on. Despite being, well, awful this season, West Ham, they've won the corner count in 6 of their 10 Premier League home matches, which I was quite surprised about because every time I seemed to tune in, they were just getting carved open. Liverpool, Arsenal and City are the only teams to go to that ground and win more corners than West Ham. So decent opponents there. They were promising signs against Villa, I'd say. It was a difficult one to just come straight into. Took the lead, obviously had to absorb a lot of pressure, which wasn't ideal for their corner count there, but share their home, and I just think they'll be on the front foot. Fulham have had fewer corners than their opponents in 6 of their 9 Premier League matches so far. So difficult to beat, yes, but certainly on the wrong end of the corner count. This bet's also won on Fulham's last 5 visits to this ground, with West Ham averaging 7.8 corners per game. So quite comfortable there. That's a very, very big number of corners. We all know that the Potters are capable of conjuring up some magic as well. So I think we'll see a positive display from West Ham. And there's your head in, but
Perfect.
Good stuff. Betsy projections for this game: 1.5 for West Ham, 1.3 for Fulham. So sided with the hosts, which is quite surprising. But there is a lot of quality in this squad, isn't there? With those front 3 behind the striker, Somerville, Kudus, Lucas Paqueta. Like, if you can get something out of those, surely you're going to be scoring some goals and creating some corners. So let's hope that happens for these 2 bets. On West Ham versus Fulham, Mark Stinchcombe's is over 2.75 goals. That's a 1.89. And Scott Thornton's is for West Ham to have the most corners. That's a 1.90. 1 full unit on that. Should we do a bit of backslapping for another pod treble win?
Yeah.
Gentlemen? Yeah? 2 in a
We
row?
should.
Well done, everyone.
My New Year's resolution was to not lose any more bets, and it's certainly going...
Smash
It's going well so far. So just to recap, we had Liverpool to win to 0 and win the first half versus Accrington Stanley. That was Sam's, I think. Got submitted both teams to score in Fulham versus Watford, and Daniele Fisichella submitted Jack Grealish to score assist versus Salford City, which came in at a breeze in that 8-0 win. Pod treble of 5.44 to 0.25 units on that as a track bet. Which is now comfortably in profit for the treble for the season. I think we've done 12 trebles so far, and we are plus. If you track every single as a full unit and every treble for a quarter of a unit, we are plus 3.48 just for the trebles. Which good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, an unofficial official. Let's go to this week's treble. Let's make it 3 in a row. Sam, kick us off.
Yeah, the treble back to back. I'm going to start with Blackburn to win at home to Portsmouth. That's at 1.75. Really like Blackburn under John Eustace. Good players all over the pitch. All know their roles pretty well. Overall, they're a better team at this level than Portsmouth, especially when Pompey play away from home. Only Plymouth Argyle, shock, have conceded more goals away from home than Portsmouth's 30 in 13 games. And they've won just once on the road, losing 11 of 13. They've also lost their last 5 away games, Portsmouth, including in Wycombe on the weekend, League One, Wycombe with a rotated 11, but still, that's not ideal. Sunderland, Bristol City, Watford and Derby have all beaten Pompey on home soil since the start of December. Blackburn are decent at home, playoff chasing type form. They've experienced a bit of a tricky spell recently without a win in their last 5 in the league, but that does include games against Burnley, Leeds and Sunderland. And I'm hoping that their FA Cup win 1-0 against Borough on the weekend reverts this Blackburn side into a decent run of form, starting with Portsmouth at home on Tuesday evening.
Good stuff. And Scott Thornton. your submission to the treble.
Yep, so back to Everton versus Aston Villa. I can't believe I'm saying this about an Everton game, but we're backing both teams to score here. Yeah, vibes again. I'm all on this Moyes train. I think it's going to be, yeah. But there is some good data behind it. I was interested to see that Everton's XG per game was 1.66 in Moyes' final season. It's never been higher. That's since then. Martinez ran it close. Surprisingly, last season was their second highest XG. But nobody's either has got to the level that Moyes got it at. And I just think we'll see, like Sam said, a Goodison Park that's just up for it in some ways. I know it wasn't a universally accepted appointment, not popular, let's say. But when has the Everton fan base been united in the last 10 years anyway? So it's not really a shock. I think they'll get behind him. West Ham scored plenty of goals last season. It was the defence that they were undoing. They scored 1.58 goals per game, but conceded 1.95. So ideal for a both team to score team. That's what you're looking at. They finished 9th last season as well, didn't they, West Ham? Which for some reason I thought it was a lot lower, maybe because of all the negative noise surrounding David Moyes. And I just think it's a decent appointment. Villa have scored in 4 of the last 5 visits to Goodison. Both teams have scored in 6 of Villa's last 7 across all comps. And just the atmosphere, Everton, this doesn't serve Moyes well to come up and serve some turgid football in his first game. It's just going to really create some negative noise. If they can go and score 2 goals here and avoid defeat, then I think Everton fans will be pretty bullish about the rest of the season. They've just got to stay up. As Sam said, there's a few decent attackers there. There's nobody prolific, but I do think they've got some goals in them. But I do fancy Villa to score as well. Villa have conceded 2 or more in their last 4 Premier League away games now, though, I believe. So, yeah, I just don't trust their defence, really. But they obviously are a very decent team, Aston Villa. But mainly just vibes, yeah. Both teams to score. David Moyes is back. It's going to be more entertaining than we're used to at the moment.
Vibes treble. Mark, close it off. What's your submission?
Yeah, I promised there was no collusion or copying. I did say to Sam my bet before this show. It's Leicester v Palace over 2.5 as well. That's good to know he's on the same lines. Can't really add too much to what he said already, but yeah, Van Nistelrooy, 7 games in charge, has been 24 goals, 3.86 per game. I think he's just going to go all out to try and win games instead of, goals wins games. And I think, obviously 3 points is a lot more attractive than 1 point. And I actually went into this game thinking Palace might be a bit short. They've only won 4 games all season in the Premier League. Like, do you want to be backing them, odds on away from home? Not for me, but yeah, Leicester defensively have been pretty woeful, conceded at least 2 goals in the last 6 games. And I think what's positive, because obviously the reason for perhaps a lower line than expected, it's obviously Crystal Palace bringing that line down a little bit. But I think what's positive is when you look at the difference in their matches between when they have Ismaila Sarr in the starting 11 and when without. He started last 14 games and there's been 38 goals, 2.71 per game. In the 8 matches without him, there's only been 18 goals, only 2.25 per game. So I think he's doing a good job of replacing essentially Elise. Maybe not with as many assists and goals, but simply giving Palace more of an attacking face, if you like, and stretching the game a little bit more. And essentially, yeah, the means that the goals are increasing as a result. And, reverse fixture finished 2-2. And arguably, I think that game that perhaps could have been even more goals as well. So, yeah, finish off the treble with over 2.5 and Leicester v Palace at 1.72.
Yeah, fingers crossed for the treble. Put all those together, you'll get odds of 5.44, which is one of our longer trebles, I think, all things considered. Usually have a couple of 1.6s in there, but
identical to last week as well, isn't it? The price.
Fingers crossed. We have the same result. Let's do a quick recap of the bets and get out of here. Sam, what are your 2 singles?
Everton over 12.5 shots at evens on Bet365 and over 2.75 goals in the Leicester v Crystal Palace game at 1.98.
And Scott Thornton?
Arsenal versus Tottenham, over 36.5 tackles and over 25.5 free kicks at 1.86. And our second bet is West Ham to have the most corners in West Ham versus Fulham at 1.9 a unit on each of them.
Mark Stinchcombe, your 2 singles.
Chelsea v Bournemouth +1 on the Asian handicap at 1.89, and West Ham v Fulham over 2.75 goals at 1.89 as well. Just 1 unit across both games, a bit risk averse with the hectic schedule at the moment, meaning that sometimes it's a bit difficult to be too spot on with the correct price.
Yeah, nothing like your previous appearance with that over 3.5 Liverpool goals selection. But
I think the other 3 bets won, so I think it's okay
fine.
to be a bit bold.
Let you up. The pod treble this week, Sam Ingram's submission is Blackburn to win against Portsmouth. Scott Thornton's is both teams to score in Everton versus Aston Villa, and Mark Stinchcombe's is over 2.5 goals in Leicester versus Palace. We are tracking that for a quarter of a unit at odds of 5.44. If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly, only betting what you can afford to lose. Thank you very much to Sam Ingram.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott Thornton.
Thank you, Dan.
And thank you to Mark Stinchcombe.
Cheers, Dan. Bring on the treble.
Bring on the treble. And thank you from me. We will be back on Thursday. I won't be around, but it will be our 50th episode. So thanks to everyone who's been listening along.